They say we've never been more advanced. We speak to satellites in orbit, edit our genes, build machines that can outthink us. Yet, somehow, beneath the surface of all this brilliance, millions of us feel lost, numb. There's a silence modern life can't explain, a longing that no upgrade, promotion, or achievement seems to quiet. You may have felt it, in the stillness between tasks, in the shallow victories of a finished to-do list, in the echo that follows applause. It's the sense that something essential is missing, and it's not your imagination. Ancient cultures once placed spiritual evolution at the center of life, not as an escape, not as superstition, but as a discipline, a process, a human birthright. From the serpent energy of the Kundalini to the silent knowing of Gnostic mystics, there was once a map for inner transformation. Not everyone followed it, but everyone respected it. Today, those maps are gathering dust, dismissed as myth or buried beneath productivity hacks. We've mastered the outer world while forgetting how to listen to the inner one. Our cities gleam, but our souls go dim. And the deeper question rises, why? Why did we stop evolving inwardly, even as we raced ahead in every other direction? Was it a natural shift or a deliberate detour? This story moves through time and silence. It will bring us to the lost wisdom of ancient seekers. It will expose how progress became a trap, how intellect was confused with awareness, and how systems, knowingly or not, pushed us away from ourselves. You felt this without knowing why. A missing piece, a spiritual inheritance you can't quite name but now want to explore. Welcome to Beyond Reality. If you stay with this until the end, you'll uncover something most people never get to see. And if you like to question everything deeply, please subscribe. You've just found your place. Long before machines hummed and screens lit the night, spiritual evolution pulsed at the center of human life, woven into breath, ritual, and the rhythm of the earth. In ancient cultures, from the high temples of Varanasi to the mystery schools of Alexandria, the goal was not to conquer the world, but to know the self. The Vedic sages of early India lived in conversation with the sacred, tracing the contours of consciousness as if charting the folds of an unseen landscape. Through practices like dhyana, mantra, and Kundalini awakening, they sought direct experience of what they called Atman, the infinite self beneath all illusion. This was no distant theory. It was a path demanding everything. The rise of Kundalini through the chakras spoke of a power felt in the bones, a transformation etched into breath and being. It brought insight, power, and sometimes madness, if awakened without preparation. Elsewhere, in the quiet heat of the Near Eastern deserts, the Gnostics offered a different kind of knowing, divinity as memory stirring within, waiting to be recalled through stillness and inner sight. They spoke of a divine spark buried inside every person, hidden under layers of conditioning and ignorance. To them, salvation unfolded through awakening, a return to clarity, not submission. Gnosis carried no weight of belief, only the quiet certainty of direct insight. Early Sufi mystics, too, saw spiritual evolution as central. Rumi's poetry carried the weight of guidance, each verse shaped to awaken and realign the soul. Love, suffering, and ecstatic surrender were steps toward the unveiling of the beloved within. Their practices, whirling, chanting, fasting, were designed not to entertain, but to dismantle the false self, to make space for presence. Even early Buddhist teachings emphasized inner development as a methodical path. The Noble Eightfold Path offered a way of tuning the mind, a precise unfolding of awareness. Meditation became the instrument, refined, deliberate, alive with insight. The mind, a field of study. Enlightenment, a radical shift in perception, was something every human could pursue. What all these traditions shared was this: spiritual growth wasn't optional. It wasn't decoration for a balanced life or a weekend retreat. It was the reason you were here, and they built their civilizations around that understanding. But over time, something shifted. These systems, once open and exploratory, began to harden. Ritual overtook revelation. Priesthoods replaced practitioners. The living flame of inner awakening was sealed inside temples, monasteries, and secret texts. Some knowledge was lost, some was hidden, and some, perhaps the most potent, was deemed too dangerous for the masses. The initiatory paths that once invited all seekers became guarded thresholds, fenced in by dogma and power. And so the sacred maps faded, not all at once and not everywhere, but enough that by the time industrial civilization emerged, spiritual evolution was no longer seen as essential. It had become background noise, a personal hobby, or a superstition. The birthright of awakening had been reduced to metaphor, myth, or mental illness. Yet traces remain, in dreams that feel older than your own life, in moments of inexplicable clarity, in the quiet sense that there is more to this world, and to you, than anyone ever taught. Something profound was once known, and now, perhaps, it's time to remember. We tell ourselves that we've come so far, that skyscrapers and smartphones, space stations, and AI are signs of our ascent. But beneath the glittering facade of progress, something crucial has been abandoned. Our inner world, once revered, has been quietly overwritten. This didn't happen overnight. It began subtly during the rise of industrialization. As machines reshaped landscapes, they also reshaped minds. Human beings, once guided by cycles of the sun and rhythms of breath, were reorganized into hours, shifts, and quotas. Stillness was rebranded as laziness, reflection as inefficiency, and the soul, there was no profit in that. Modern schooling took shape as a system designed to shape behavior, aligning young minds with the rhythms of industry and obedience, rather than the depths of reflection. Individuals trained to memorize, repeat, and obey. Emotional nuance, introspection, and intuitive knowing were never part of the curriculum. Over time, we learned to distrust our own silence, to outsource meaning, to confuse information with insight. Capitalism amplified this shift. In a world driven by consumption, discontent became currency. Spiritual longing, once honored, was redirected into products, personas, and endless improvement schemes. Instead of turning inward, we were taught to chase goals, optimize routines, and perform happiness. Meditation apps sell mindfulness as a productivity hack. Ancient symbols are printed on leggings and sold without context. The sacred has been sanitized, made marketable, safe, and hollow. But some thinkers suggest this isn't just a cultural accident, it's a feature of the system. Michel Foucault traced the quiet architecture of power, showing how institutions weave themselves into the fabric of perception. Schools, prisons, hospitals, they do more than guide action. They sculpt the sense of self. Their rhythm favors order over awareness, repetition over revelation. Carl Jung warned of a modern epidemic, a soul sickness born of losing contact with archetype, myth, and meaning. He wrote of a hollowness that grows when the inner path fades from view, when life turns outward and the soul's compass falls silent. In his words, man cannot stand a meaningless life. Even our highest technologies reflect the imbalance. Artificial intelligence grows smarter by the hour, yet offers no insight into the nature of being. We can edit genes but can't locate the soul. We explore distant planets while ignoring the uncharted terrain of our own awareness, and still, we wonder why we feel lost. Many carry a quiet shame for their spiritual numbness, as if they've failed some invisible test. But perhaps that's the final illusion. The stagnation you feel isn't a personal failure. It's the result of generations being steered away from their essence. If society doesn't value awakening, it won't nurture it. And so your hunger for something real, something ancient and alive, becomes an act of resistance. The myth of progress tells us we're evolving, always forward. But what if the line we followed isn't upward, but outward, stretching us thinner, faster, farther from ourselves? The truth is uncomfortable, but liberating. You were never meant to stay asleep. You were simply never shown how to wake up. You were never meant to become something more. You were meant to remember what's already within you. The truth is, you don't grow into a soul. You return to it. And every moment of silence, every breath of presence, every glimpse of stillness is the path back. But first, we have to dismantle the illusion that we've already arrived. In today's world, intelligence is currency. From childhood, we're rewarded for quick answers, sharp logic, and mental agility. Test scores become identity. Titles become worth. We celebrate those who can calculate, innovate, and dominate with data. And somewhere in this rush toward intellect, we quietly began to believe, the smarter you are, the more evolved you must be. But consciousness doesn't work that way. Neuroscience is beginning to reveal what mystics have long known, that consciousness and intelligence emerge from different regions of the brain. IQ draws heavily from the lateral prefrontal cortex, where logic, planning, and abstract thinking reside. But awareness, your sense of self, your capacity to witness thought rather than be consumed by it, arises from the posterior cortex and deeper midline structures, often in opposition to that calculating mind. In other words, a brilliant mind doesn't guarantee a conscious one. You may know someone with a towering intellect who lacks empathy, or someone with multiple degrees who has never spent a moment in stillness. And you've likely met people with no formal education who radiate presence, who listen deeply, love simply, and seem rooted in something vast. Modern society doesn't recognize this form of intelligence. It doesn't measure spaciousness of mind or depth of perception. It rarely honors the ones who move slowly, speak softly, or hold paradox without solving it. These traits, once cultivated in ancient spiritual disciplines, are now seen as impractical, even weak. But the irony is sharp. Our overdeveloped intellect may be the very thing blocking our awakening. The mind loves control, categories, certainty. Consciousness, on the other hand, thrives in mystery. It grows in silence. It emerges not when we analyze more, but when we let go. Ancient traditions understood this. Buddhist meditation invites a stillness where thoughts pass like clouds, untouched. Sufi practice softens the self, making room for love to enter without resistance. In Vedanta, the question isn't, what do you know? But, who is the one who knows? This is why so many modern seekers feel frustrated. They read, they study, they collect concepts, but still feel no closer to the truth. Because awakening isn't an intellectual achievement. It's a shift in perception, a return to a kind of knowing that precedes thought. There's a cost to this misunderstanding. When consciousness is reduced to intelligence, we lose touch with awe, with humility, with the quiet force that animates life beyond language, and we mistake noise for depth, analysis for wisdom. The moment of shift arises when you no longer reach to possess, but begin to release. Awakening moves through that quiet undoing. Clarity lives not in conclusions, but in the simple, unclouded gaze. What truly matters is the steadiness you can hold, the truth you're willing to face, the space you make for what's real to enter. And that's why you're watching this. Thanks, by the way. Give this video a like if you feel we're standing at the threshold of something deeper, something long remembered but newly alive. The world may reward intellect, but the soul recognizes presence. And in the spaces beyond thought, between breaths, in forgotten silences, in the soft gaze of someone who truly sees, you may begin to remember what consciousness really is. Somewhere along the way, humanity traded its inner compass for an external map. We chased the stars, built empires of information, and called it evolution. But the most essential journey, the one inward, was left behind. Ancient traditions once held the thread. They spoke of spiritual growth as the core of living itself, the slow unfolding of the soul toward its own source, essential and unshakable. Then came systems that severed us from that truth. Industrial, cultural, even psychological forces that slowly redirected our gaze outward. And so we began to mistake movement for meaning, intelligence for awareness, progress for wisdom. But now, perhaps, the forgetting has run its course. That ache you feel, that subtle longing, isn't a sign of lack. It's the trace of something sacred you once touched, an ancient memory stirring awake. It's the soul recognizing a path it once knew. Spiritual evolution has always been yours to claim, though hidden beneath the noise, buried under habits, false signals, and the careful shaping of attention. And you don't need to reclaim it all at once. You only need to notice that you've begun to remember. They stole your spiritual future, but only if you never look for it. In choosing to be present, to question, to feel, you are already stepping beyond the frame they built for you. Stay with that impulse. Thanks again for being here. There are 2 more paths unfolding on your screen right now. Trust what draws you. Whichever one you choose, it's part of the same remembering.